All right, everybody. I'd like to introduce our next presenter here at the Planet MicroCap Showcase in Vegas 2024. We have Kite from Checkit. Take it away.
Thanks a lot. And well done for those of you who've managed to charge up on the caffeine and get in early for what will be the most interesting presentation of the day. So you've made it. Well done. As you can tell from my accent, I'm not from these parts, but I haven't just flown across specifically for this. I've been in the US for the last 4 months as we boost up the US side of our business, more of which will come in a minute. And I'm fresh off the back of having presented the annual results for our company over in London last week. So I'm getting used to the plane travel. Okay, so I'm going to treat everyone here as blank sheet. You know nothing about Checkit nor the opportunity, and I'll try and bring that to life for you. So Checkit is an organization, a sort of platform technology company that's playing in a pretty significant untapped market. So we target what is called the deskless worker market. For those that are trying to figure out who that is, that's about 80% of the global workforce. These are people that work for large blue chip multinational organizations distributed across tens, hundreds, thousands of locations, effectively running their operations. So think of the likes of a BP or a Shell or a Walmart or any of these types of organization. The majority of their workforce is actually a deskless worker. Okay, so these people have been very underserved from a technology perspective, you know, pretty much up until COVID, right? It's still pen and paper and it's spreadsheets to do their work. It's very ineffective. It doesn't really enable an organization to get any visibility on operational effectiveness. Given the size of that cost base, that seems pretty inefficient. Since COVID, we've seen that change. Okay, so Checkit, within the area that we play, the IoT sensor market, which is one aspect of our platform technology, is massive. It's significant. It's growing 18% CAGR. It's sort of 120 billion over the next few years. And we've positioned ourselves as quite a market-leading offering to solve for that. The core value proposition that the Checkit platform is providing to this market is all around cost efficiency. So cost out, which is a big line item for most of the CEOs and boards of these businesses. So cost out, productivity, efficiency, and at the same time, compliance, safety, and ESG. Okay, so it's how do you run operations more effectively? And I'll talk you through how that looks. So broadly speaking, what is it we do? Who are we? How do we look? From the most senior leader, most senior stakeholder in an organization that we would sell to, you're looking at someone who's a COO. COO, CFO, maybe even a head of compliance, something like this. And what you're getting with the Checkit platform is a single pane of glass where you now get to witness and see in real time your operational KPIs, the performance of your business. Effectively, what Checkit's doing is lifting up the bonnet so you can see under the hood and see actually how your operation is performing. This is something that they've never had access to because they've been existing in a pretty siloed analog world. You're just not getting the data coming up. So that's what the most senior stakeholder gets. And how is it enabled? How is it facilitated? Two aspects of the Checkit platform. An IoT sensor ecosystem, what we would call sort of an extended nervous system that runs across the organization. These are literally small Scrabble chip type devices which sit on fixed assets, providing asset telemetry and asset reporting in real time. Okay, this is an automation play. So no more need for labor, increasingly expensive labor to have to go check these things. They're being automated. That data is flowing into the platform. The second piece is what we do with the deskless workers themselves. And they are equipped with the Checkit workflow management, task management platform. So it's device agnostic, it's iOS, it's Android, it's iPad. It doesn't matter. Effectively, these workers are being guided, prompted through their daily tasks, checks. They're able to respond to remediation activities instantly. Okay, so these two pillars form effectively the Checkit platform. They feed the data back into the Checkit cloud. It's a low code, no code platform. So very easy for users to adopt more processes and bring in more assets. Obviously, off the top of this, we're generating billions of data points. So that the direction of travel for this organization is how do we bring ML and AI to harness that opportunity and bring some real intelligence into the operation. So then how does it look? This is the integrated version of what that platform is. So you've got the sensor networks providing end-to-end monitoring of critical assets. And we'll talk through some of what those critical assets and customers look like. Feeding it back in. The workflow is taking, effectively these deskless workers from a place where it was just pen and paper or it was spreadsheets. Remember, this is a world where attrition rates are 70, 75%. So organizations are seeing massive turnover in any one year. If you have a tool that can better onboard the new employees, it's a direct cost saving measure. If you have a tool that allows you to do more with less, so you're not getting duplication of effort and all this stuff, it's very valuable for an organization. And as I said, ML AI off the top. So we recently released, and on the subject of ML AI, we recently released to the market a new AI module that we've built specifically to serve this opportunity. It's called Asset Intelligence. What does it do? So on the left-hand side, what you'll see is the traditional level of monitoring we're providing for an organization using IoT allows for compliance, stock loss minimization, safety. These are highly regulated environments. What the Asset Intelligence AI module is doing is we're already generating vast amounts of data. So how do we turn that into intelligence for organizations? So we effectively have algorithms now that will allow an organization to do one of three things, or three of three things. One, predictive maintenance analytics. How can I predict with a high degree of probability which assets are about to fail? Because if I can get in there ahead of time, then I'm minimizing the likelihood of stock loss, but also miss revenue opportunity. Two, how do I, from an ESG perspective, how do I minimize energy cost savings, which are out of range? For every degree that an asset is out of a temperature range, for example, an organization is incurring additional costs. When you multiply that across tens, hundreds, thousands of fixed assets on a continual basis, it's significant bottom line savings alongside the ESG play. And then the third one, of course, is CapEx optimization. These organizations struggle to figure out which assets are likely to fail. With the Asset Intelligence module, we can tell them when they're going to fail, so you can do an effective asset swap out program, rather than just assuming that every year I need to swap out 50% of my install base. So this, on top of the automated monitoring that's already being provided, is significantly sticky. Okay. So where do we play? Like, who are our customers? So this is an organization where we focus specifically on healthcare, retail, and hospitality industries, retail being kind of food retail. So 50% of our ARR comes from healthcare customers. So think private hospitals, think care homes or senior living, I think it's called over here. Think blood plasma and R&D laboratories. So interesting fact, in the US, which we've been present for about 3 years, we're now the leading provider of blood plasma monitoring solutions already for the United States, which is not bad, giving a standing start from just over 3 years ago. So about 50% of our ARR comes from healthcare. This is a highly regulated industry. So typically it's a high margin industry. The cost of failure, the cost of stock loss, the cost of not being efficient is significant for these organizations. Food retail, that's about 30% of our ARR. So think of, who do you think of here? Walmart, a Stop and Shop, BP, one of our largest customers. That's their service stations that we're running. We do them across the whole of the UK. That's Netherlands, Luxembourg, Australia, New Zealand, and the US is the next market on the agenda for us with BP. So thousands of locations. And hospitality, think of your traditional hospitality, high-end hotels and resorts, but also think of companies like Compass Group or Sodexo, who do run significant food operations across tens of thousands of locations. We have them both as customers, and we look to expand as we grow there. The opportunity for us is to bring on adjacent industries. So, for example, food manufacturing or biotech, because we see, given the domain knowledge and domain experience we've got, these become the most appropriate adjacent industries to target. This is a company that's got 350 plus blue chip customers on board already. Sticky, because effectively our gross revenue retention is 99%. So it's around about 1% churn, which is best in class. The kind of names you see on this slide, BP, Octapharma in the US, Grifols in the US, the National Health Service, where we're in about 75% of all hospitals in the UK, Sodexo, Compass Group, gives you an indication of the kind of customer we have. I'll give you two examples of how this works in practice. So BP, what do we do there? What do we actually do? So BP have service, so it's the retail side of BP at the moment. What have they got? They've got service stations across most of the Western sort of developed markets. For them, their opportunity is not just a fuel opportunity. Of course, it's high margin around selling goods and cooked goods to customers. If you go inside one of these service stations, certainly where we're currently present, the entire operation is effectively being run and automated by Checkit. So where there's people who have to check to make sure all your brand merchandising is in the right place in accordance with all the other locations, where there's a requirement to set up open the store, close the store according to certain procedures, follow every task, where something fails, they're using our platform on a device like this to guide them through it, so they can send remediation actions back into the platform or back into a maintenance team. Where they have assets, cooked goods, just think, pasties, sandwiches, hot dogs, whatever it's going to be, fridges, freezers, those critical assets have our sensor network in automatically monitoring. So no more requirement for human checks. All of that data is brought into one place. Okay, so that allows BP on a sort of global or regional basis to have a clear view of which service station is performing to which standard across the entire base. So we're in all of their UK-owned service stations. We're in Netherlands, we're in Luxembourg, we're in Australia, New Zealand. That means from a sort of macro level, you get a much better picture as to how to improve margin efforts or how to improve brand activities and target it according to the region and the demand that's going through there. So a good example of where the ML sort of algorithms we've built for BP come through is we've got a module called CPM that works specifically for them. It helps BP predict and prevent revenue leakage across their locations. So effectively, we can, because we plug into their POS system, we can see what the footfall and the traffic is according to season. We can help someone like BP predict what the optimal product mix is by time of day, by location, by season. So it's quite interesting. So one of the insights that BP got from us was see if you can imagine who this user is. So the optimal product mix for them was what's called a bacon and cheese flip, a black cup of coffee, and a packet of chewing gum. That was the optimal product mix, and the best time for that was between the hours of 1 and 6 a.m. So who do you think that user might be? Lorry drivers, so truck drivers, right? So imagine if you don't have those product combinations at the right place, what truck drivers will do is they'll just go speak to each other and say, don't bother with that BP service station, it's shit, right? It hasn't got what we need. So again, missed revenue opportunities. And that's just one small example of the kind of insight they get with us. I'll give you an example of, I won't name the name, but I can say to you, it's one of the two on the left-hand side of this slide because it's a US customer. And it's a really good example of a situation they've had in the last 9 days where we've played a leading role in helping them out. So effectively, this is the blood plasma organization. We provide a monitoring capability for all of their locations in the US. That means from a regulatory perspective, they're always within range, within stock. They don't have to bin what is quite expensive equipment. So far, so good. They were hit by a ransomware attack 9 days ago that had their entire organization taken hostage, everything offline. They can't even go into Outlook. They can't email someone. Supposedly it's come from Russia. Okay, so they're offline. They're in crisis mode, crisis situation. What they need to know, or what they needed to know from us, in fact, even our own product was taken offline within that mix. Two things had to happen. One, we had to make sure that the virus didn't come across our own organization because that would have been pretty much terminal. But two, for them, their question is, how do we know our mission critical operations is still secure and still safe? And can Checkit deliver the goods? So it was quite a stressful period over the last 7 or 8 days, least of all because there's always the question of, will it backfill all the data? Because the way it's supposed to work is it's meant to be able to handle some kind of an attack like this and effectively backfill all the data in real time so that you would know as the CEO, the COO of this organization, that your stock has stayed within the correct parameters from the entire time. You don't have to bin it. Otherwise, you're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars worth of wastage. Yeah, pretty terminal thing. And the good news is that in the last 7 days, we've taken everything back online. We've no damage to any of the systems, full clean bill of health. So mission critical operations delivered ultimately by the Checkit system. So that's like last line of defense. I was speaking with the group CEO and CFO on a regular basis in the last 7 days. And it was, it was sackable offense stuff if this stuff went down. So that's a really good example of the value proposition. Clearly the next conversation is, how do we extend the scope and how do we do more for you? Because this is very powerful. So I thought I'd share that as an example of why the Checkit value proposition stacks up. For hospitals, in terms of the use case. Yeah, so the use case for hospitals, so we do the National Health Service, we're in like 75% of those. Primarily, the departments which we target there are hematology, pharmacy. They're the two main departments because, again, you can put the automated solution in. Also, R&D laboratories. So anywhere where you've got very sort of high-value stock that needs monitoring or you're needing to source stuff in a secure environment, that's typically where the use case plays out. So yeah, for us, obviously the opportunity in the US, it's slightly different with the private hospitals, but we're looking to figure out how we can replicate the same footprint we've already built in the UK, Western Europe, over in the US. Okay, so in terms of the growth strategy, top line is effectively what we're doing about growth. Bottom line is what we're doing about cost, profits. I keep mentioning the US. It's the stated aim of this organization that the US becomes the leading contributor of ARR and recurring revenue to the business within the next 2 years. They're already at 26%, by the way, from 0 3 years ago. So they're moving pretty fast. Upsell, cross-sell on existing customers. So net revenue retention for this company is about 111%. So it's kind of top quartile performance. What that really means is we follow a very specific land and expand strategy. You know, large, lumpy whales, so-called whales, are a little bit more difficult to come by since in the last 2 years, right? Because sales cycles are lengthened. So we focus on just getting a foothold into an organization, knowing that the total enterprise value over 2 to 3 years will be significant, get in, demonstrate the ROI, and then expand from there. Hence land and expand strategy, hence NRR, where it's at. I mentioned adjacent industries that we're looking to move into. On the bottom line, this is a full recurring revenue business, pretty much full. So 93% of our revenues are recurring revenue. Okay, so that's great. It's clean. That's good forecastability of future revenue streams. That's something we've been on sort of on a mission to secure over the last couple of years, and that's been done. At the same time, look, we're in a world, you know, when we raised a bunch of money back in 2021 to fuel the company's growth. That was good timing, obviously. But, you know, we recognize that you need to preserve cash these days and do it in a very prudent fashion. So the other thing we're doing alongside trying to build our growth strategy is also to maintain a pretty prudent cost base in order to bring forward profitability. And I'll just give you an indication of how soon that will be shortly. And then at the same time, we're looking to keep investing in that aspect of R&D and innovation that makes sense. So we talked about ML, AI, how we monetize data. That's pretty much the direction of travel for Checkit. And we just do that on use cases that show the right green shoots. Okay, so US. So from 0, we've grown it to, it's still, you know, it's still modest, but it's about £3.5 million of ARR within the last 3 years. It's grown at more than 30% CAGR. What are we doing here? The predominant use case or customer base we've got so far is around the blood plasma sort of R&D, like monitoring capabilities. As I said, we've got 6 of the top 10 blood plasma providers in the US already. I think we have figured out that we're now the leading provider of services in that space, which is great. You know, it's a relatively narrow niche, but all of the adjacent opportunities either side of it, if you think about what we do over in the UK in terms of hospitals and senior living and private hospitals as well, suggests a really good expansion opportunity there. The other piece, of course, in the US is around something like food, retail, and hospitality, because, of course, what's attractive is you've got, you know, 4 or 5 times the number of large blue chips that we can go after, where we have a really proven sticky use case and some really good logos like, you know, like BP, or in the UK, Waitrose, John Lewis, and Tesco's, who we can use to demonstrate the value with our US customer base. The focus on investment is around sales and marketing, pretty much in the US. So I recently brought on a new sales leader in the US who was the CRO at a company called Form.com, which is about 50 million of ARR, a PE-held company. So he's been on the journey. And the idea is just to transport the relevant experience with domain and then scale from there. In terms of financial highlights, so ARR, the company is about, at the start of this financial year, so we're just at the end of Q1 now, so that's 31st of Jan, was about £13.3 million of ARR. That's up about 16% year on year. Group revenues, £12 million, 70% year on year. Gross margins up 4 percentage points, about 67%. Obviously, given the IoT, you know, that has some form of an impact on gross margin, but the flip side to that, of course, is it makes for sticky customers. Yeah, we halved our losses in the year as well. So we, you know, this whole drive towards profitability is going in tandem. So that's down to 3.4 million, down from 6.4, and cash is healthy at 9 million. So in terms of things to think about, we anticipate our cash low point of being about £4 million by the end of next year. So effectively, we're covered for cash right through break even and right through profitability and then growth. So in terms of how we see the year playing out and what we look at for the future, there's guidance in the market. So we're very confident around hitting cash flow break even in effectively what will be Q4 next year, and then full positive EBITDA by the start of the following year. So we're sort of 18 months out. So that's now secure effectively, especially given our ARR and recurring revenue base. The question then is, how much more can we capitalize on the growth opportunity, particularly with a view on the US? And that's where we're looking to focus our resources for the time being. Land and expand strategy will continue to play out. So I suppose the main question, the final question would be, why should this be seen as maybe an interesting investment opportunity? I suppose I would say off the top, first of all, we're London listed. What does that mean? Well, we're also a tech company, so it means two things. UK market is I suppose some might say a bit of a valuation gap between, say, US peers. That speaks to a bit of an opportunity. And we're a tech company, which means the last couple of years, people have taken a different view around companies that are, spending too much cash and trying to grow. And so that also creates an opportunity. And as you can see, we've righted the ship on that. So that's positioned for the right opportunity. ARR has been growing at 30% plus CAGR over the last few years, and it's going to continue to do so. So, once we get beyond cash flow break even, the operational gearing in the business really can start to play through some quite positive EBITDA margins in the next 2.5 to 3 years going forward. So it's a good opportunity to get on board. And as I said, the US is pretty much our primary focus as a business. So, it's worth noting that, again, everyone's a little bit coming from the UK, everyone's a little bit negative looking at their feet because a lot of companies are being taken private. Just last week, Darktrace got taken private. What we're seeing is people are being taken private for 5-6 times ARR, give or take. Checkit's probably about 1.5 times ARR at the moment. So, and I would be lying if I said we hadn't had something like 6 approaches in the last 6 months from US PE firms. So that's a potential opportunity that's going to come down the line. We think we just want to drive a bit more scale and grow, take more of a growth opportunity before we look at why that would happen. Okay, and then just to wrap things up then, this is me. I'm the CEO of the company. I've been at Checkit for about 3.5 years, pretty much the first CEO we had. The interesting thing to note, Checkit spun out of a company called Electron Technology, which was the original listed entity. We successfully sold Bulging, which was the main part of that company, to PE about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, returned about 100 million back to shareholders. Checkit remained the listed entity. So the chair of the company, Keith Daly, is still a 20% shareholder, proven track record on how we do this. And then if you look at the rest of the players here, I've mentioned Ryan, who's our VP of North America, a lot of domain experience coming from a 50 million ARR plus company. So he's been on the scale journey. Same with Steve Tonks. David Davis, this company came out of Cambridge University. He's a PhD, Cambridge electrical engineering. So he's the kind of guy that's building out this innovation network. And yes, it's a pretty solid team. It's well landed. We know what we're doing. Not much to say about capital structure. We've got no debt. And with that, I suppose I'll open it up for questions. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we're not going to go after the entire thing. For us, we think sort of somewhere between 5 to 10% of that is a non-realistic target. It's moving quite quickly, the Internet of Things opportunity. The way we think about it, so we have our own IoT and our own IP, and it's kind of best in class for what we do for the use cases we have. But what we're increasingly doing is incorporating best in class third-party IoT providers into the platform, because that's going to be the direction of travel. So we will effectively orchestrate any number of additional use cases around the core set we've already got. Yeah. So everything's baked into a recurring revenue contract. We call it peace of mind. And 3-year minimum terms of the contracts we sell against. Increasingly, that's moving to kind of 4 years and plus. Effectively what we do is we amortize the cost of the IoT over the term of the contract. What you then see is the margin within the contract picking up in years 2, 3, and 4 and beyond. Average customer lifetime value seems to be around about 8 years. So they become quite accretive over time. Yes. Other questions? Yes.
Talk about your customers before. Does that happen more in the US or international?
With the overall growth? So the US is effectively growing quicker than the rest of the business. It's a bit relative, isn't it? It's starting from zero, right? So it's always going to go quicker at some point. It should probably level out. No, I mean, the overall customer base is probably equal in terms of net new customer acquisition across, say US and Western Europe. But what we see with the US is just people are making decisions a bit quicker and contracts coming through with a bit more speed. So yeah. Good. Any other questions? Got a couple of minutes. Can take anything. Yeah. So we're on the verge of pulling the trigger for, say, a Q listing to make things easier there. Yeah, OTCQX. I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. And part of the reason why I'm here today is to effectively get a sense of demand and, what do people feel? Is it something that's going to be interesting for us to do? I think it will be, given our ambitions with the US. So yeah, that's something that's going to come online, I would imagine, over the next few months. Good. I think then there's no more questions. We can probably call time. Thanks.